Hey there, everybody. Thank you for joining us on Making Sales Social Live, especially if you're our favorite people, sales and marketing pros. So, we're coming to you from the Social Sales Link virtual studios. I'm Bob Woods of Social Sales Link. Some call me the LinkedIn Sherpa. There's a song
In
lyric.
there somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
Some call me Maurice. Is that
And as you've just heard in the co-host seat with me is fellow SSLer and a LinkedIn and social selling strategist, trainer, and coach herself. She is known as the LinkedIn Whisperer, Bryn Tillman. How you doing, Bryn?
I'm good, Bob. How are you?
I am doing wondrous today. Absolutely great. Thank you
I
very
love
much.
it.
Yeah, that's great. So today we are unlocking the secrets of LinkedIn's free search. It's a tool that many of you are probably familiar with, but you might not be using to its full potential. Brent and I have the insights to help you optimize your LinkedIn strategies without spending a penny, which is important during this holiday season when saving pennies is kind of optimal. So you can, put them somewhere else essentially. So let's get started. And as always, we're going to be taking your questions and comments throughout the show. If you're with us live on LinkedIn and all of our other places as well. So Bren, let's get this ball rolling with, what are some of the free features that LinkedIn has in its search?
Well, first of all, like there's so much available in the free that people
Right.
don't recognize, and they're not leveraging what's already gifted to them. There are so many times where I'm teaching a class and like, well, can you just show us the free? I'm like, this is the free.
This is the free. Yeah.
So let's start with how do you get to LinkedIn search? Because
Yep.
they hide this lead, right? So if you go up to your search bar when you're on LinkedIn and you
When you're on
hit,
LinkedIn in your feed page or actually anywhere within LinkedIn, it's almost always there, except for if you're specifically in the settings. But if you're not in settings, it's always up there.
perfect, right? So if you, and you hit enter, you're going to see people, posts, products, jobs, companies, groups, services, events, and courses. What we're typically looking for are either people or companies when we're in a sales position, but you might be looking for posts to engage. So we'll save that for later on. Let's start with people search. So when you click on the people search, and then what we recommend is you go to all filters.
I
These are
call
the,
that the secret sauce. That's the secret sauce of searches.
oh, I like that. The
Yeah.
secret sauce. So right now there's a beta running. There's often beta runnings that has seniority. If you see that, I'm skipping it for now because it may not be there next week. By the time you hear this, it may be something else. But let's go through the standard. You can search by connections, right? So you have your first degree connections and your second degree connections. There may be a third, but I ignore that.
Yeah.
So, first degree is when you're taking inventory of your own connections. Once we're going to go through kind of some of these filters, you'll see, who am I connected to that I should be talking to that I'm ignoring? So, first degree connections. Second degree connections for me, this is the secret sauce,
That's the
right?
spice to the secret sauce. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah, it's the one that yeah, I mean, this is the ability to search and filter your connections to identify who you know that knows who you want to know. We can also search by connections of. I love this
Yeah.
because when you
That's
search
very good.
connections of, like if I want to see who does Bob know that I want to meet, I can just get a list of Bob's connections that meet all my other filters. So we'll keep
Yep.
going. Followers of followers, really fun. This
Yes.
is so let's say you are a big Brene Brown fan like me,
Hmm.
and I want to see in my first degree connections how many people follow her. In my second degree connections, how many people follow her? Maybe I have a great podcast I listen to, and I can use this as a conversation starter because it's someone they follow. Hey, Bob, noticed you're a Tony Robbins fan. Recently heard a podcast where he talked about this, this, and this. Let me know if you're interested. I'm happy to send over a link. Right? We can start a conversation around what matters to them. And by the way, this is in the free. This is in the
Yes.
free
Everything we're talking about is in the free. Yep.
Yeah, so locations. This, if your town or a town has a zip code. So I'm in West Orange, New Jersey. It has a zip code. It will show up. Now, there are times where you'll type your town and it doesn't come in the drop down. And it's because it probably shares a zip code with a bigger town. So you'd have to use that. So that's the only criteria around here. But if you are going to be out at a conference or maybe even locally, you're going to a client, you can search your other first degree connections or second degree connections in that area. You could get down to those just little teeny tiny towns with a zip code. Or you could do, go ahead. Did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was just thinking of, like potential use cases. So this is really important if you have a territory. If you sell to a defined territory, you can't necessarily like narrow in to real specific zip codes, but like if you are in a major metropolitan area and you cover most of that area, you can put that in there and then bring up the people who are in that area, which I think is really cool. And if you like, if you have the entire United States, you can do that because that will exclude the worldwide at that point. I mean, it builds out or builds in. And also if you have multiple locations, you can put that in there too. So, if you're like me, I would consider, like Cincinnati, Lexington, and Louisville. You can put all three of those in there and bring up a little bit of a wider universe in there as well.
That's a very good point, right? So you can have more than one little town or big town that you put in there. The one thing I said, just so we don't have, so what I said doesn't create confusion. You can't put a zip code in like you can in
Right.
Sales Navigator, but
Right.
you can put the name of a town.
Right.
And to Bob's point, don't just put in one town. You could put surrounding towns. So I could do West Orange, Livingston, Short Hills, Millburn, Verona, Montclair. And now I have like a 10-mile radius around that area.
Yeah, exactly. Because what happens there is that not everyone knows, they may put in their own town that's a larger part of the metro area, but if they are self-indicating that town, it won't necessarily show up in the metro. So so this is all self-reported in other words. So you can really get granular, but then also realize that, you may need to put some of these towns that are surrounding in there because that, greater X area may not capture everyone who's actually in that area.
That is I never really thought about it. That's such a great point.
Yeah, whenever I'm doing makeovers, I always ask people, do you want to be known for your little town or do you want to expand your visibility a little bit and actually be known for the metro area? 9 times out of 10, it's the metro area.
Brilliant. I love that. Love that. So there are other filters like the company they work for, the company they used to work for, and that's typically used more in recruiting in past companies, but there are some use cases in sales to use that. Schools, industry is huge.
Big.
Now there is a large industry list. If you start typing the industry, for example, if you started typing manufacturing, you're going to see probably 8 or 10 manufacturing options come up. Make sure that you're choosing exactly the ones that you want, but generally, and you have to test this out, if you pick the overarching manufacturing, it often encompasses all of them, but play with it. A/B test and make sure that as you're doing this, that you are getting all of them. And this is how I've A/B tested it. If I go in and I do all of manufacturing and I get a number, so, if I did manufacturing first degree, I'm actually going to do it behind the scenes when we're talking, right? So I do manufacturing and I get 1,800 first degree connections in manufacturing. If I go back to that all filters, right, and now I'm going to add an additional manufacturing, it doesn't switch that 1,800. It stays 1,800. But if I take out full manufacturing and just have a subcategory, it does change the numbers. So a primary category, just make sure, if you're going to choose all of manufacturing, you probably don't need to choose all the subcategories. But if there's just subcategories you're interested in, you wouldn't do all of manufacturing. That's just leave it at that, I think, for now. There are other things like open to and service categories. We typically skip them. But the big one is title. Do you want to talk about Boolean searcher and title a little bit?
Yeah, so with title, people, because again, you have to remember everything in LinkedIn is self-reported. So these are the individual people who you're trying to reach out to. They are putting in the information themselves. So sometimes they'll call themselves a vice president. Other times they'll call themselves a VP. So if you're looking for just vice presidents, for some reason, you may want to say like vice president in quotes and then put or, which is a Boolean operator, is what it's called, vice president or VP. That way it will search both. And that's just like one
Yeah.
example of some of the Boolean operators that are available.
And the or is the one I use the most. But
Yeah,
two
or is the one. Yep.
points here. In LinkedIn, when you use a Boolean operator, or the OR needs to be all caps. The O has to be capital. The R has to be capital.
Yep. Otherwise,
From
it'll be a word.
From my experience, you can only do 5 ors when you put in a 6 that breaks it. So in the free. Now, when you're in the Sales Navigator, you can kind of almost go unlimited in that. But in the free, you get 5 ors. There are other things to keep in mind. So maybe you want VP or vice president, and because it's 2 words, vice president, as Bob said, it's in quotes. And let's say we only want them in a sales role.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So your VP or vice president should go into brackets. And then we're going to add an and, A-N-D, all capitalized, sales. So what it's going to do is it's going to bring up all your vice presidents and your VPs. And then it's going to say, and it also has to have the word sales in it. And it will reduce your VP and vice presidents to only be in sales.
Yep.
When you can nail this. Now, if you are in Sales Navigator, you don't need to know Boolean search. Rarely do I ever use Boolean search. Sometimes in keyword search, but rarely do I use it. But in the LinkedIn, when you can nail down this search, you're really going to get a list of people that match your criteria much more directly than without using it. So let's go back to that using your first degree connections. Bob, what would you do if you had a list of these folks? Now we have our ideal persona list.
Yeah, so then at that point, you go through and you start looking through their profiles and seeing if they are in fact people who you might want to have a sales conversation with, a partnering conversation with, whatever, but definitely check them out and look at their profiles and see, quite frankly, if they're people that you want to talk to. Because if you're like me, sometimes you know people, sometimes you don't. It's just one of those things, essentially.
So for me, I'll take a look at these folks, and usually I have a plan even a little bit prior. I mean, I'd find the list, look at who they are, and say,
Sure.
okay, so I'm looking for VPs of sales, right? Clearly. So there are a few things. What can I do to start a conversation, a trust-based conversation without being salesy? Few things. Number one, you can have a poll. Put out a poll, and then specifically for VP of sales, and then reach out to them and ask them for their one-click vote on your poll. Great way to start a conversation. Another might be to invite them to be on a LinkedIn Live with you.
Yep.
Or to get a quote for an ebook or a blog post that you're writing.
Yep.
Right? So there's lots of ways now that we've got this first degree connection. One of my favorite things to do, so let's say I have a piece of content, a blog post that I think I just want to share with them. I would actually jump on my mobile device and send them a video message like, hey, Paul, it's been a while since we last connected. I just published a blog post on 5 things every VP of sales should know. I'm gonna put a link down below. Please let me know if you find it helpful, or let me know if you'd like the link. I'd be happy to send it to you. But I would jump on video. It takes very little time. For some of us, less time than actually typing. right? And you really connect, and you have a very high likelihood that they're going to respond when you send a video. And you can also do a voicemail if you're not like ready for prime time.
Don't be afraid of video though.
Yeah.
It's easy and it's much more effective. No one, hardly anyone else is doing it, so you will automatically stand out to the people who receive it just because you're sending the darn video.
Awesome. Yeah. And the next thing, by the way, I just want to share is the second degree connection.
Yep.
This is really magic. Do
Mhm.
you want to talk about second degree, or should I keep going?
You're on a roll. Keep going.
All
You're on a
right.
roll.
So
Rolling
second
solo.
degree, the reason I teach LinkedIn is because of the second degree button. And
Yep.
I'm not kidding you. I was a sales trainer, and we would teach people how to get referrals. And the conversation would be, hey, Bob, I'm so glad we've been able to help you do X, Y, and Z for your company. I'm not sure if you know, but the way that I've grown my business typically has been referrals from my happy clients. Who do you know that I could help the same way I helped you? And what's the typical response?
If I think of anyone, I'll let you know.
Well, yeah,
Not like that, but you know what I mean. People generally speaking, when they're put on the spot like that, just can't think of it because they're not really thinking in that vein. So, I mean, I was making a lot
what
of
you
fun.
said is accurate. I have never actually heard that in that accent. I'm
Right,
sorry.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
but
was bad. I apologize, but everyone knows what I meant by that. You know, people
yeah,
just kind of vapor lock, and it's
right, that,
natural.
that's true. You're like, I don't know. I can't think of anyone, right?
Mhm.
So this is where it's life changing, really life changing. So now you go into LinkedIn, you're connected to them, you search, you have your ideal search, you're taking a look at that list, and now you go to connections of, and you stick in Bob Woods. Who does he know that it's second degree connections? And now I have 12 people that show up that meet my criteria. So,
Yeah.
Bob, I'm so glad we've been able to help you do X, Y, and Z. I hope you don't mind, but I noticed you're connected to 8 people on LinkedIn I'd love to get in front of. Can I run these names by you?
Yep.
And
And
all
yep.
the
Mhm.
right? Now,
Yeah.
all of a sudden, you're like, oh, these 3 would be great for you. Now I can
Yeah.
go 2 ways. I could say, of these 3, is there anyone you'd be comfortable introducing me to? Oh, yeah, Jane, I'm happy to introduce you to Jane. When I reach out to the other 2, can I mention you've been my happy client? You thought I should reach out and introduce myself. You could do that with all 3. And then now you connect, and I'll say, Jane, Bob Woods and I were chatting the other day. Your name came up in conversation. He says hello. I've been working with him for the last 2 years on X, Y, and Z. We've been able to help him do A, B, and C. He thought I might be able to bring some value to you, even if we never work together. Let's connect. That's too many words for a connection request, but you can have
Yep.
300.
That's the idea.
That's
That's
the concept,
yeah.
right? So we reach out, we connect, they connect. Jane, thanks for connecting per Bob Wood's recommendation. Let's set up a call. Please let me know your preferred way of scheduling. If it happens to be via calendar link, here's mine. Sometimes they'll send you their calendar link, or sometimes they'll schedule. But we have about a 50% success rate of name dropping to conversation.
Yep.
And it's been consistent for years at about that.
Yep.
And the others will connect with you and say, oh, we're not really interested at this time. But now that's where content strategy comes into play, right? And the other things where you're nurturing them. But half of them, half of 3 is 1.5. So let's say 4. 2 of them will connect with you. You get about 100% connection requests unless they're not active at all, and 2 of them will take your call. And it's such a wonderful way to grow your pipeline from your warm market.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So,
So let's go to just a couple of comments here really
oh,
quick. Our friend and pal Jack Hubbard says the bankers we work with using A/B testing with Bryn Tillman, obviously, this has helped them target and focus their finite sales time, and I think that's a huge point because you can't just go in and just start searching the world for people. You really need to have a focused strategy, and by using the search filters in a wise way, you can definitely get to who you want to search for like right away.
Yes, it would be better if it's shown live. We have training classes all the time.
Yeah,
This
we
is
have training classes all the time, and to be quite honest with you, just because, actually so few people view us live, it's mostly audio that people can consume this. So that's why we go through and we describe things because the people who are listening to us on our podcast, they don't get us via video.
Yeah, this is live, but it the primarily goes to podcast. So
Yep,
that's why we don't go live here. But if you go to socialsaleslink.com/events, although it's the end of the year, so it's a little light, we've got events all the time. And socials, if you go to LinkedIn Library, if you just scan the LinkedIn Library, we have tons of trainings where you can see us going live, and we have ebooks
absolutely,
and other things. And
absolutely. And then Charlotte real quick just asked, "Would you please show how to search on Open to Work?" I don't know how to do that. I don't know if Bryn knows how to do that to talk her through, but because we do mainly sales and we don't do career stuff, we generally don't address career related things here just because it's not our bailiwick. So, as
well,
sometimes people ask us about, what am I trying to think of? Profiles and things like that, and redoing profiles for careers. We can definitely recommend people, but we don't do those.
yeah, interesting though. Um, yeah, if I go to jobs, that's the job alerts.
Yeah,
I don't know, even in
yeah,
Sales
we just don't
Navigator,
have this.
I believe you need to have Recruiter or Recruiter Lite to be able
Oh,
to search. I'm going to guess that is not available in the free because
yeah,
I have never seen it, and we do not have Recruiter or Recruiter Lite. But that, and I don't even know that for certain, but knowing LinkedIn, I'm going to say that's probably
yeah,
it's probably a premium on Recruiter or
yeah,
Recruiter.
yeah. That's probably true. So, sorry, that's just a little bit out of our scope, Charlotte. Although we tried, but yeah. So, with that, I think we're pretty much tapped out. But
Yeah, I have
like,
one more.
I'm sorry.
I have one more.
You have one more. Ooh. So we're gonna
Mhm.
call this bonus because I wanted to wrap up, but Bryn said there's one more. So this is a bonus.
Okay, bonus. You can search companies by first degree connection.
Oh yeah.
So if you want to check out what companies you already have a connection in, when you go back to that search and you hit enter and you go in and you hit companies, there's lots of
Mhm.
filters in the free. And I think there's over 66 million companies on LinkedIn, which is an incredible number. Again, you're going to have location, industry, company size by employees, and then you're going to have first degree connections. So if you want to drill down to see, maybe you sell to companies in particular industries that are between 51 and 1,000 employees, you can find companies that meet that criteria. And then by clicking first degree connection, you can see if you're in a business development role, is there anyone inside of those companies, or are there any people inside of those companies that I can tap, even if they're not a decision maker? This becomes, I would go in, I would kind of map out the company and the decision makers and just say, hey, Bob, you've been working at Social Sales Link now for 9 years. How much, I'm looking to talk with some of your sales leaders. I'm wondering if you have 5 minutes before I reach out to them to just kind of give me an overview of the company and what you like. So we have a conversation, and then I say, hey, how well do you know this person or this person? And I could potentially either get an insider introduction or permission to name drop. Hey, I was talking with your colleague, Bob Woods. Your name came up. After I told him a little bit what I'm doing, he thought I should reach out and introduce myself. And
Yep.
now you're starting those conversations at a high level. So that's all available in the free search.
Yep. And as Bryn said earlier, if you want more information, we do have our our library, our content library, which is absolutely free to join, socialsaleslink.com/library. If you want to see this stuff, that's the best place to do it because we got all kinds of information in there.
Yay! Okay,
Yay!
now you can wrap it up.
Now I can take us out of here. So thanks again for joining us on Making Sales Social Live. If you're with us live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or X, formerly known as Twitter, we do this every week. So keep an eye out for our live sessions. If you're listening to us on our podcast and you haven't subscribed already, hit that subscribe or follow button. If you'd like more information on our podcast, it's at socialsaleslink.com/podcast. We do 2 shows weekly. This one and our Making Sales Social interview series, where we talk with leaders and experts in sales, marketing, business, and many more areas. That's available in the podcast. We don't do those live. Those are podcasts only. So to get access to those, you need to go to the podcast. So when you are out and about, be sure to make your sales
Social.